Okay, I've started recording. You can start.
Okay, sir. Uh, so feel free to pause me anytime and ask questions if you don't understand what I say mathematically or phonetically. Okay. So in this presentation, I'm mainly going to talk about three theorems. First is that if a function is defined on a closed interval, just say a to b on R, and functions the image of the function is R as well. So if the function is Riemann integrable, then the function is Lebesgue integrable as well, and the Lebesgue integration of that coincides with the Riemann integration, and then we shall develop some corollaries of that using the result or some tangentially related results, and then we shall state the Holder's inequality and Minkowski inequality, which is essentially the this thing Minkowski, which is essentially the triangle inequality for this LP node. So I'm starting. So these are the this is the table of contents. Right. So in the first section, I will prove that this Lebesgue integral coincides with the Riemann integral. So f is a function defined from R a0 means R a0 is the set of all functions which from a0 a comma b to R, which is Riemann integrable, and L ab is a set of all functions in from a comma b to R, which is Lebesgue integrable. So if f is in R a to b, then f is in L a to b as well, and the Lebesgue integral of f over ab with the standard Lebesgue measure, like which is the extension of the length measure, coincides with the Riemann integrable how to get of f. Right. So first we start by expanding the definition of what it means for the function to be Riemann integrable. So first we fix the function f. Let f be a fixed function which is Riemann integrable on a to b. So recall that this means what this means for it to be Riemann integrable is that we can approximate it arbitrarily well by the step functions. So essentially what that means is that if you give me any epsilon, I can retaliate back uh, with a lower with a partition size that the lower sum of the partition is and the upper sum of the partition. The difference between these two, the maximum of this thing, like area of this rectangle that are formed by this partitions thing, is less than epsilon. Right. So now now essentially this condition is a bit annoying to work with in the sense that this you get a different partition for different epsilon. So to get rid of that, what we do is that we do a small trick so that we have this nice condition, like take any partition corresponding to 1 by n, and then adjoin these points, like refine it by further refine by this, and then further refine it by adding all the points which are made previously. So since this is a refinement for the original partition, the serial audio is muted.
No, go a bit slow. I said. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay, okay, sir.
And especially when you go to next page, just pass and go. Okay.
Yeah, okay. You want to go slow or go fast?
Go slow. I said. Go slowly. I said.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah. So since Rn is a refinement of Pn, so what we have is that the mesh sum is less than that of P 1 by n, which is less than 1 by n. But the upside of using R n is that we have the extra structure that this thing Rn minus 1 is subset of Rn, which makes it a lot easier for us to work things out. I mean, this is a technical thing like which helps killing the proof. And this thing, then this is the lower step function, like the lower function that we approximate f from the underneath, and this is the upper step function which approximate the function f from the above. So now this is the what we set the stage for the Lebesgue integral. Now we introduce the Lebesgue integral. So this thing, whenever a function, like to reduce confusion, we denote the L of this thing to denote the Lebesgue integration, and R of this thing to denote the Riemann integral whenever this is applicable. Now note that according to our definition, each of by the can you see my pointer?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay, good. So to reduce confusion, what happens is that this thing, like we define L and R to be the Riemann and Lebesgue integral functions. Now note that according to previous definition, each of these Ln and mu un, they are simple functions both in the Riemann integrable sense as in the sum of the characteristic function of half open intervals. Also in the Lebesgue integral sense, because the half open intervals are in the are Lebesgue measurable. So in particular, since the Lebesgue integration is well defined for simple functions, we have that Li is Lebesgue integrable, and the integral is equal to like mi times the measure of this length, and the length is equal to xi minus xi plus 1 minus xi. Similarly, we do the same thing for the upper dimension as well, and we get this thing. Now, recall from the original condition that the sum between Li and Ui is bounded, we get that this thing Ui minus Li is also Lebesgue integral by the linearity of Lebesgue integral, and the Lebesgue integral of un minus ln. Note that this function is non-negative. Firstly, the Lebesgue integral of un minus ln is less than or equal to 1 by n.
So is it what? So one thing. So like in this slide, is it like xi mu of xi to xi plus 1?
Oh yeah. Sorry. This should be no mu of xi to right. This should be, sorry, I made a mistake here. This should be mu of xi half open interval, comma xi plus 1. This thing xi to x plus 1 half open interval. Mu of that is equal to this. I mean that is a typo from my side. Sorry about that. Okay. Now note that if you consider all these functions Li, they are simple functions, simple Lebesgue integral functions, and they are bounded by the constant Lebesgue integral function, which is equal to capital M times the characteristic function of the interval, right? So now we can apply this thing. Now we can apply the Romantic convergence theorem. So then the pointwise limit by the what the Romantic convergence theorem says is that we have the Lebesgue integral functions, and they are bounded by a Lebesgue integral functions, which is this thing m of chi ab of x in this case. So so the pointwise limit. So what dominated convergence theorem tells us that the pointwise limit of that, which is defined as the function Lx, the pointwise limit of the function is Lebesgue integrable as well, and this we can commute the we can interchange the limit and the integral to get that Lebesgue integral of L of x is equal to lim L goes to this thing L n of x, which is lim n goes to infinity, the lower sum, because the integral of this is equal to lower sum already shows that, which is equal to supremum that because the lower sum is non-decreasing. Similarly, the exact same thing for the upper sum, and we get that integral of ux is equal to infimum over the partitions. Now, since f is Riemann integrable, we have sup of this thing is equal to inf of this thing. So what we get is that ux is less than equal to ux is greater than equal to L of x, but integral of ux is same as integral of L of x. This is formulation in the next slide. So this since f is Riemann integrable, and so by the definition of Riemann integrability, this is equal to this and also equal to this. So, and also note that L of x is bounded by f of x. So the since L n of x is less than equal to fx for all n, so the pointwise limit, that is Lx, is also less than equal to fx. So we have this inequality. So what we have is just that the Lebesgue integral of this is equal to 0, because Lebesgue integral of this is equal to inf, and Lebesgue integral of L is equal to sup. So the Lebesgue integral of this entire thing is equal to 0, but the function that we are integrating upon, that function is non-negative function. And what you know that is that if you integrate a non-negative function, if the Lebesgue integral of a non-negative function is equal to 0, it's 0 almost everywhere. So what you get it.
Did we prove that? We didn't prove it, but anyway, we will see next class.
Okay. So I'm sketching a proof of that. So
yeah.
So okay, I don't sketch it here, but I'm sketching it orally.
Okay.
So what you do is that so suppose f is a function such that the Lebesgue integral of that is equal to 0 and f is greater than equal to 0. Define define s of n to be the set f inverse of 1 by n to infinity. So what we have is that this thing by now note that since f is Lebesgue integrable, in particular f is measurable, then we can approximate f by we can write f as a pointwise limit of step functions, and for each s of the step functions, so we can expand each step function as sum of ci chi of Si for some set Si, right? And if mu of Si for if Ci is non-zero for some I and mu chi of Si is also non-zero, that will be a contradiction, because that will give the that will give give us a point x such that the chi of that is the f of x, that is the non-zero, that will give a non-zero set Si such that the value of the function on that set is at least Ci. That is a contradiction. So the setup for any simple function which is approximating S, for any non-zero term that is happening in the approximation, we have there the term is equal to Ci chi of Si, then the mu of Si must be equal to 0. So this forces that this thing. So since the equal now we since the this measure is countably additive, so the set of all non-zero this set of all non-zero points is union of all these Si, and since each of them is equal have measure 0, the union of all of them has measure 0 as well. So thus f of x is equal to 0 almost everywhere. Now returning back to the problem, what we have is that note that since we have this inequality, we can write this, we can break this up into two parts. This is equal to this union this. In particular, this set is subset of this set, and since this set is has a measure 0, this set has measure 0 as well, and since the Lebesgue measure is complete, this set is complete. So in particular, fx minus lx is 0 everywhere, 0 almost everywhere. And since fx minus lx itself is a non-negative function which is 0 almost everywhere, this is also Lebesgue integral with integral 0. Thus, by the same proof that I told. So thus the Lebesgue integral of fx is equal to the Lebesgue integral of lx, which is equal to sup of this thing. And again, by the first line, what I get, this is same as the Riemann integral of fx, which proves this theorem. Now we move on to some application of this theorem. First question is that are all Lebesgue integral functions Riemann integrable? Because we prove the converse, right? So suppose you have a Lebesgue integral function on the interval 0 to 1. So we are essentially trying to ask the converse of this converse of what we proved. So no, and the answer is no. So a counter example can be given by if you take a measurable set which has measure 0 but that is dense. So for an example, since Q has measure 0 and Q is dense in R, we restrict Q to 0 to 1 and take fx to be the characteristic function of that. Since the set has measure 0, fx is a simple function in Lebesgue sense. So it directly follows that Lebesgue integral of f is equal to 0. But note that f is not Riemann integral because any open interval will contain both a value of both two x such that since any open interval will contain both a rational and irrational point. So then f will take also the value both 0 and 1 in any open interval. Thus any lower dimension sum will be less than or equal to 0, and any upper dimension sum will be greater than or equal to 0. Because this thing, then f is simple function, thus the integral is 0, and we have this inequality. My monotonicity is equal to 0. So the Lebesgue integral f is equal to 0. But on the other, it's not Riemann integrable since by the Danielson argument, the lower dimension sum and upper dimension sum differs by 1. So you cannot define the partition further that for example, the partition's length is half. So this gives a counterexample to this. Next to move on to so Lebesgue integrable helps us integrate some functions which are not initially Riemann integrable. So next question is that can Lebesgue integral integrate all functions? No, the answer is negative. So proceeding similarly as above, similarly as the before counter example, what we do is that we take the characteristic function of a non-measurable set. So one non-measurable set that we know is the Vitali set that is constructed using axiom choice. So take V to be a Vitali set on 0, 1 and take fx to be the characteristic function of a Vitali set. Now I claim that f is not Lebesgue integrable. If it was, then since then f would be measurable, and sorry, if it was, then since any Lebesgue integral function can be written as Pointwise image of increased simple functions, and since each of the simple functions is measurable, by Monton convergence theorem, the Pointwise limit, that is f is also measurable as well. But here f is not measurable because f inverse 1 is equal to Vitali set, which is not a measurable subset of 0, 1.
What is the problem? What do you mean by Lebesgue integrable here?
The characteristic function of Vitali set is not Lebesgue integrable on 0 to 1.
No, so what do you mean by Lebesgue integrable here?
That this thing you cannot. So so we define the lower Lebesgue integral like as the soup of all the step functions is less than equal to that. We similarly define the upper step function as the soup inf of all step functions
For defining it like that, okay.
and
We defined it just by, I mean, we just defined it by through one way. We defined for only for measurable function, non-measurable.
We define because our definition coincides for the measurable functions. But generally, we can suppose that these two are equivalent definitions.
Okay.
Now there is another question that so the statement that you prove that any Riemann integral function is a Lebesgue integral, that's actually not true in its full generality. So note that in the proof we very carefully use the fact that the integral the Riemann integral is bounded. So if the function is non-negative, then the exact same proof works verbatim to show that if it is Riemann integrable on an open set, then it's Lebesgue integral there as well. But if it is if it's not, then we have a counter example. The counter example is given by fx equal to sin base. So here you're not considering the Riemann integral normal sense, but we're considering the improper Riemann integral, which is given by lim n goes to infinity in 0 to n sin x by x. So we're considering the improper integral. So here you can easily check by integrating by parts that fx is Riemann integrable, but in order for this to be Lebesgue integral, we want to break into this positive part and negative part, and so that each of the part is bounded. But here note that if you look at the positive part, as in which is equal to f plus x is equal to max of fx0, then you can lower bound the nth partial integral by a harmonic series, and since the harmonic series is divergent, so the Lebesgue integral does not exist. So the theorem that we stated here, theorem that we proved, that does not hold in its uttermost generality. This is a counter example for that. Now I move to the inequality part.
Can you just wait for the
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And then we have a Holder's inequality. We say that so through this and the rest of my presentation, I will assume that two numbers for two positive real numbers p and q are conjugate if 1 by p plus 1 by q is equal to 1. Like this convention will be used through the proof. So now we state Holder's inequality first. The Holder's inequality states that if x sigma mu is a positive measure space, and if f and g are non-negative functions, then integral of fg over the entire measure space is less than equal to the pth norm of the this thing and this thing. In the language of LP norm, you can say that the L1 norm of fg is less than equal to product of this p and q norms, or p and q are conjugate pairs. So the proof idea is simple. Essentially, we keep reducing till we can that this is equal to 1, this is equal to 1. At that case, the problem is trivial. So now do the reductions first. First reduction is that if either of this is infinite, then we don't have anything to solve, because anything is less than equal to infinite. And if integral of fp is equal to 0, then fp equal to 0 almost everywhere, because by the same thing that we used previously. So hence f is equal to 0 almost everywhere. So fg is equal to 0 almost everywhere, and hence the LHS is also 0. So if RHS is 0, then the LHS is 0 as well. So then again we don't have nothing to prove. So assume that fp this is also not equal to 0. So we can define this lambda f is to be integral of this, and lambda g to be equal to this. So by previous two conditions, we have ensured that these are like two legit, like in the sense that not infinite or non-zero, positive real numbers. So we can normalize this thing by defining f dash to be f by lambda and g dash to be g by lambda. Note that it's sufficient proof for these two functions as well, because then you can just scale back, and since if you scale this by c and scale this by d, then you get this thing c to the power 1 by p d to the power 1 by p back. So scaling does not affect the inequality. So we will prove this for this thing, when the lambda is equal to lambda is equal to 1. But for that case, the problem is trivial in the sense that note this, we have this inequality for real numbers. This is not hard to see because we have proved this 3 times, but again I am sketching a proof for just for sake of completeness. You can just with a loss like if a is 0, then you have nothing to prove. So assume a is non-zero. So then you consider this function a is x to equal to x to the power q by q minus plus 1 by minus x. this is differential function. So just use mean value theorem on this, and so then you will get the inequality that h of g is greater than equal to 0 everywhere. So by applying the theorem with a equal to fx and b equal to gx, we get this the inequality. Now if we integrate this, then we get that integral of fgx is less than equal to this. But since lambda p is equal to 1, lambda q is equal to 1, we get 1 by p plus 1 by q is equal to 1. And the original inequality follows from this. If we scale back this, then the original inequality follows. Then we have Minkowski's inequality. This proof of Minkowski's inequality used like kind of similar to Holder's in the sense that firstly we use Holder's in the proof of Minkowski, and secondly that proof technique is also kind of similar to Holder in the sense that we first do some reduction and then use Holder to, and the content based proof is pretty proof follows from there. So note that again we do some reduction. So if this thing is equal to 0, then note that if either of this is equal to 0, then note that f plus g is greater than 0 if and only if either f is greater than 0 or g is greater than 0. So we can assume that both is greater than 0, because if this is equal to 0, then like we get the this side equal to g to the power p d mu 1 by p, and this is also g mu to this side, so we have nothing to prove. So we can also guarantee assume that both are greater than 0, and then we need to handle the negative class. So observe that we, for non-negative reals a, b, one has this thing. You can see it in two differences. One way to see this, that you can use the Newton's binomial expansion and then binomial expansion and prove it, and other way that you can use the same thing that you did for Holder. You construct this function with respect to assume a is greater than equal to b. If a is 0, then it is trivial, because otherwise then scale is either b is equal to 1. Then again apply mean value theorem on this. Then the slope is non-negative. So this function is non-zero everywhere, which proves this inequality. So in particular, using this inequality, how do you have this? If either of this is infinite, then this side is infinite as well. So you can with our student assume that this is finite. So with our student assume that edge is finite. So using Holder's inequality on these two pairs, we get that this is the inequality. And note that by the definition of conjugate, if we expand the q p minus 1, we'll get p back. Yeah, because this thing, observe that 1 by q is equal to, so 1 by q is equal to p minus 1 by p, so p equal to 1 by p. So properly writing, we get that integral of x of this thing is less than equal to this function. We interchange f and g, and we apply the same Holder on this tuple to get this thing, and then we add them up. So if we add them and use the linearity of Lebesgue integral, we will get this thing. So, and we assume that this is not neither 0 nor infinite, because by the reaction that we did before, so you can cancel this term. So this will be 1 minus 1 by q, which is less than is equal to 1 by p, which gives the desired inequality. And then you can move to some applications of these two inequalities. Yeah, we can consider to get 0. One application is that this itself proof that the you can see the Minkowski's inequality, not the statement that we measured. We can see this Minkowski inequality stating that the norm that we give on the space of all Lebesgue integral function, that f is going to this thing. This is a well defined semi-norm. This is not a proper norm in the sense this is not positive definite, because you can take a function that is 0 almost everywhere but not identically 0, so that will be a valid norm. So this is a well defined semi-norm. So that is how the Minkowski's inequality proves. And then what you can do is that we have this standard. Note that we have this standard LP norms. For example, the sequence norm on all the LP sequences, or the LP norm on the Rn. So using suitable measures, we can reduce both of these theorems from the original theorem itself. For example, the counting norm gives this, or the Lebesgue, the normal Lebesgue integral on some piecewise constant function gives this thing. Or for example, the Cauchy-Schwarz is a special case of this thing. If we take p comma q to be 2 comma 2, note that 1 by 2 is equal, plus 1 by 2 equal to 1. So Cauchy-Schwarz is so this gives Cauchy-Schwarz back. So this thing. So then we have the original the Cauchy-Schwarz equal back. So that's about it. That's the conclusion presentation. And yeah, thanks for Ovidum for helping with the LaTeX, and Onpom for providing my original LaTeX thing.
Okay, good. So any questions? Yeah, you went a bit fast in the end, but
okay.
But people can watch the video if they want.
Okay.
So what's the time? Shall I continue, or we will meet tomorrow?
I have no problem. I have no process. So if no one doesn't have any question, can I turn on my video?
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Okay, I don't see all 21 people here. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Sir, like,
Yeah.
just one question. Sir, when exactly is the assignment due?
Next week, Friday is the deadline. And we
Okay.
may have a midterm then a week after next week. I haven't decided because I'm thinking whether to have midterm or just have this semester without midterm, have the full-fledged exam in the end. I will announce next week. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is it fine? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay then. So I will end the session.
Okay, sir.